Abusia Inikumo El Chani so AGH Politics Avenue. Podcast of Secretary Mikis make headlines. Ye Jumbre na EDB Exomo Wahadidim, any Ahobrak Simus ene, ADD Kanya. Success which must subscribe to the channel. It's notification bell to share na afi arafo akanso ensa intumi enkebi enidima yanko amayu simunum onia ye bo ewrema His Excellency John Dramani Mahama wotimi ahye se big push agenda no allegations abahu bia no with immediate effect empenfo a omu edano no enhwe na omu enyimu enhwehwemu a onua me no kasei enye asem koto akra na at this point in time ye bobo ewra insemnim na yahwe insema His Excellency John Dramani Mahama ankasa edugu ho efa sa insem ya mekan ho hasi AGH Politics Avenue onia yembo enwra insemnim.
Well, now away from that, President John Mahama has directed his office to obtain the full detailed report of the Fourth Estate on its investigations into the Big Push contracts for study, with a firm instruction to the Ministry of Roads and Highways to equally present its response to the allegations for onward action. The president's comments comes in the wake of the online media serialization of what it describes as a ministry of sole sourcing. He spoke at a meeting with civil society organizations at the Jubilee House.
In this regard, I note the recent expose by the Fourth Estate on procurement processes related to the award of contracts under the Big Push program. While sole sourcing is legal under certain circumstances under our current procurement law, we would all agree that open, transparent tenders are always preferable for achieving competitive pricing and value for money. I have instructed my office to obtain the full detailed report from the Fourth Estate and to conduct a study of the various allegations presented in the report. We're also requesting the Ministry of Roads and Highways to present a detailed response to those allegations made therein in order to inform government's action on the matter.
There's more to this story. Mawana Egbeta is on standby for that. Mawana, what are we learning?
So we're just going to go straight into the details of that report by the Fourth Estate, that which has become the subject matter of the president's attention, and the details therein, which has resulted in quite the conversation over the last few weeks. So in that report, they highlight 107 contracts awarded in 7 months. Of that number, they say 81 of them, of that 107, which amounts to some 76%, went through the process of sole sourcing, right? It was handpicked. One individual just handed the contract in simple terms. And then 26 of that also being through selective tendering as well, pretty similar in terms of approaches, and that was 24%. Of that, they say that if you want to break it down further, 15 total contracts were awarded every month. Of that, between 11 to 12 of these were sole source. Then they put a figure to it in terms of the data that they have, that 73 billion cedis plus went into the sole source contract, whilst the remaining 8 billion went into selective tendering, right? Raising concerns that 90% of the total value of contracts which had been awarded were being handed out through sole sourcing, which was the cause of concern because they compared narratives from opposition days to actions now in government, which was the entire crux of the argument. But what is the law's position on sole sourcing and when it is required? There are 3 specific provisions which have been captured under Act 663, and they, amongst many other things, include where goods, works, or services are available from only one supplier and no reasonable alternatives exist, then you can hand the contract over to that individual. The question which will come up is, does the contract awarded, do they fall under this specific example or specific criteria cited? The second is situations of genuine urgency, where the need was unforeseeable and delays would cause serious harm. So it's a question for all of us to answer. And then the last one, where continuation of ongoing work by the same contractor is necessary to avoid duplication, disruption, or technical inconsistencies. I want us to pay particular attention to the last two because we've had responses from both government spokespersons, the minister himself, the National Communications Officer of the NDC, and then the president as well, who spoke directly to matters of this big push agenda when it was launched. First, with respect to the president, who made an argument based off on, amongst many other things, urgency and the need to ensure that the contracts were being handed out to Ghanaian contractors because they had been hand-selected. We had the president make that claim when he was launching the first big push initiative in the capital. Now, we've heard arguments as well from the persons within government who say, oh, a number of the contracts actually existed before we came into office, and so we only continued them. Then that could possibly fall under this. Then we've heard as well suggestions that, look, big push has clear and definite timelines, and
Absolutely.
so it falls under urgency belt. The question which remains is whether or not the president will be satisfied with these responses when they are provided by the Roads and Highways Minister, Kwame Agboja, when he does table them before the president, and also whether or not they meet the criteria and the questions being asked by respective civil society groupings and lawyers as well, Kamini.
Very well, let's take this conversation now to Senior Program Officer at the Media Foundation for West Africa. Kweku Krobia Asante has commended President John Mahama's directive to his office to obtain the full detailed report of the Fourth Estate on its investigations into the big push contracts for study. Now, he has also firmly instructed the Ministry of Roads and Highways to equally present its response to the allegations for onward action. Now, the president's comments, you remember, come in the wake of the online media serialization, which you've seen Mahama take you through, of what is described as the Ministry of Sole Sourcing. Now, in a reaction to this directive on TV3 Ghana Tonight, Krobia Asante describes the presidential order as refreshing. Now, we'll tell you a bit more about this shortly. But let's take a listen to the Roads Minister, who himself also today, we understand, has hit the road, pun intended, to inspect some projects.
What you are going to provide is to provide data and power access to where the countries will be, because somebody else is deploying the e-tolling. So I think it's very important for the consultant and yourselves to work with highways currently to make sure that there's easy synergy between what you are doing and what will come by a third party at the concessionaire on the motorway, because we're almost close to selecting concessionaire, and that will start interfacing with you to make sure that it goes seamlessly. So I think it's very important for you to take that into consideration. And you are right, the investment on this road is almost $350 million. This is public money. Other people are waiting for their fair share of roads. So when we spend here, we should be able to generate some revenue to extend to other people. Otherwise, the story about us spending almost 70% of our road budget on only the big cities is not fair. We need to create some equity in terms of the way we do things. So the good thing is that the public is very much aware and is happy for the reintroduction of the e-tolling. We're going to make it as fair as possible and as easy as possible to pay. And we would encourage everybody that that money is not going to be set aside to be used to do any other thing apart from further investment on road, especially maintenance and other things. So I think that it's a good time to deepen your collaboration with highways to make sure that your amended designs conform with what they are intended to do on the e-tolling.
Oh, we just heard from Roads Minister Kwame Agboja. In a tad, we should connect with that reporter who's traveling with the Roads Minister as he inspects some road projects in the capital city. Issues around integrating electronic toll system have come up, but he's also pressuring the contractors to meet the necessary deadline. In the meantime, President John Dramani Mahama has signed 5 new bills into law, introducing changes across Ghana's security, education, and financial sectors. The most significant is the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act of 2026, which abolishes the Office of the Minister for National Security. Under the new law, the president will now assign oversight of security agencies to any minister of his choosing. The act also changes the name of the National Intelligence Bureau back to the Bureau of National Intelligence. In education, the president has assented to
Ghana Highways Authority in the previous Kufuor administration. So it's important to have. Ms. Ozzy, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
It's been a while indeed.
So those who have been saying you don't see me today, you can see me. I didn't go anywhere else.
Indeed. Thank you, gentlemen.
It's good to see my president too. Mr. President, this is your new hat. We have to interrogate it. You have left me behind. Is that your life?
It's a change because yours is nicer, so I've left that category to come.
You said it's a change, so this is part of your reset agenda.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. Now, Honorable, I realized you were putting down a few things. Before we get into the matters of sole sourcing and what the Fourth Estate put out, quickly, if you want
to...
Yes.
Good morning to my colleague panelists and to our cherished viewers. You see, Hassan, it's important that when we are speaking to matters of public record, at least we are candid and not exaggerate figures. Okay? Because there's publicly available, you say that commitments in the road sector and debt, 100 billion commitment, debt 50 billion that you inherited, clearly is untrue. Because, look, there's publicly available information that the finance minister himself, in his own budget, that the commitments that you inherited across central government, not only in the road sector, was 67 billion that they've been auditing. In fact, the president himself is on record. City GHTV unpaid bills for contractors in the road sector as of December 2024 stood at 20 billion. So where is this 50 billion from? Where is it coming from? Please, let's be true with the figures so that we can situate the conversation in their proper context. That would be my comment on all the things that he said relating to the progress of work.
You see, we have two different areas. Okay. There's the road fund areas and there's the GOG areas. Right. And I'll break it down. I'm looking for the exact figures, please, and I'll share with you.
Please.
Perfect. Now, when we get that, when you're able to access that, then we'll get into the full details of it, because it's important so that we understand. Because we're talking about these projects, the 23 projects that you inherited, that you say that regardless of when it was awarded, you're still going to go ahead with it because it is for the greater good. Yeah. It is to benefit the Ghanaian people. So you're adopting this and continuing to execute and complete these projects that the SWAL administration awarded to contractors. And you're going to start 54 new road projects. Yeah. Now, these 54 new road projects, while you look for this document that you're asking for, have you found it?
Not yet.
Okay, perfect. These 54 new projects that we talk about, do you have an idea? Are you able to give us an indication of how many of them have been started or awarded, for that matter, and currently being executed?
All have been awarded.
All 54?
All 54 new road projects have been awarded. And contractors are on site. That is what I said earlier, and they are at various stages of completion. Now, you know, when I saw the Fourth Estate publication the first time, I was eagerly awaiting to find out what the scandal was going to be.
Yes, because they had first put out, some preliminary information.
They kind of advertise a scandal.
But really, the heart of their publication is about value for money. Right? They talk about some 107 projects, or that's contracts, that they requested information and you give them. Yeah. Because that's the source of the money. You give them the information, the ministry. Yeah. 107 projects. Yeah. Out of that, as many as 81 were awarded through sole sourcing.
Yeah.
How do you explain this?
Yeah, so you see, they advertise a scandal. And we're waiting for the scandal because they wrote to us and requested information regarding these contracts. And we promptly responded without any qualms at all, as the law, requires us to. And even before that, we had started uploading these contracts and information on our website. And so we really didn't think that there was a need for anybody to even write to us in the first place for it, because once it's on our website, it's public property. And we are under no obligation whatsoever at our ministry to upload such information. But just for the sake of transparency and accountability, we decided to upload the information. And so we were anticipating what the scandal was going to be. Then, Alfred, my first disappointment was that the first publication suggested, as if to say, that if you criticize something in the past and you were seen doing it, that in itself is scandalous. With all due respect, I beg to differ, even if that were the case. At best, you can say it's double standards. You can say it's hypocrisy. But you cannot say it amounts to a corruption scandal. I mean, that in itself is not enough. Like, okay, I said A was not good. And then I am doing A. Does A amount to corruption scandal? I mean, the mere fact that, assuming that is what the case was, in my view, I was like, wait a minute. I mean, assuming we even said in opposition that sole sourcing was bad and it wasn't good, and then we are doing it, is that a corruption scandal? That in itself, for me, is not enough to conclude that there is a corruption scandal. But is that even the case, Alfred? It is not. Because in opposition, what we said about sole sourcing, we still stand by it. We said that sole sourcing was wantonly being used, and sole sourcing, when it is used in that manner, has the ability to lead to inflated contracts, which does not only contribute to corruption, but also affects even the quality of work that, the people get. We still stand by that. So if you are going to do a comparison between the then and now, even within the context of what one said before and what one is doing now, I'll expect that you do that analysis contextually. But if you engage in an out of context, comparison, you will get your facts wrong.
So what you say is out of context, because they reference the political position that you took about sole sourcing, not so much about the policy position per se, and some of the comments that your colleagues in the NDC made regarding sole sourcing. They captured Sami Jemfi and Samuel Okudzeto.
So that is
and this one, right? And this one, the page 6 of your 2024 manifesto says, quote, enforce compliance with the public procurement law to stop the abuse of sole sourcing and other breaches. That's what is in page 6 of. And then this is what the president said during the 2026 State of Nation address. Quote, Mr. Speaker, we are bringing legislation to this House to tighten our procurement processes by banning sole source contracts except in exceptional circumstances.
Right.
That's what the president said in the State of Nation address.
Right. So Alfred, what I'm saying is that when I saw the first publication followed by a video documentary, my conclusion was that it was as if you said sole sourcing was bad and you are found doing sole sourcing, then there's scandal of corruption. And I'm saying that is too simplistic, in my view. That conclusion is too simplistic. And when you look at the contextual comparison, listen to what they quoted in our manifesto, that we will enforce compliance with the public procurement law. In this case, what is the public procurement law? And that will stop the abuse of sole sourcing. We did not even say we will stop using sole sourcing. So if we are using sole sourcing sparingly, where is the scandal? So where is even the double standards if you do a contextual assessment? Because the promise was not to stop using sole sourcing. It was to stop abusing the use of sole sourcing. And so if you find us using sole sourcing, you have to point to an abuse before you can say that we have failed the promise. But if you don't point to the abuse, and we are saying that in this particular instance, we had over 80 projects, before us, and a content assessment or analysis of the processes that were used to award these contracts lead you to a conclusion that 44% was the only one that went for sole sourcing. That is stopping, the abuse of using sole source. When in the past, 100% was what was used for sole sourcing. If today you see 40% used for sole sourcing, that is stopping the abuse. And then you ask yourself, is the 40% does the 40% meet the essential circumstances?
44%?
44%. Okay. 44%. Does it meet the essential circumstances you promised you are going to use it for? That is where you can now have a conversation and say, look, you said that it was going to be exceptional circumstances. Now, we don't agree that even the 44% meets the exceptional circumstances. But at least you will acknowledge.
We ain't some who team call so our channel so. Mammy and I was so jemre oha. Asane say Obadi and dear Dumbi Adominia. Age politics aven, insane in shape.